Trump administration tells 500,000 immigrants to self-deport after revoking protections. The Trump administration's latest immigration crackdown has sent shockwaves across the U.S. with mass deportation notices, nationwide protests, and industries bracing for impact. At the heart of it, the end of the CHMB program and rising tensions between law enforcement and labor demands. If you are interested in this, please pay attention and watch the video through to the end to get all the information. Please hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification bell on upcoming video. The Trump administration began sending termination notices Thursday to about 500,000 foreign nationals who had received temporary stays to live and work in the United States under a special humanitarian exception. The so-called CHMB program was open to applicants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela from 2023 until it was terminated by President Donald Trump earlier this year. Recipients of the notices from the Department of Homeland Security are encouraged to self-deport immediately. The move came 2 weeks after the Supreme Court ruled that DHS can order CHMB participants to leave the country, even as they pursue a lawsuit challenging Trump's revocation of the Biden administration-era program. If immigrants agree to self-deport using DHS's home mobile app, they will receive travel assistance and a $1,000 bonus upon arrival in their home country. A month ago, the Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to revoke the protected status of nearly 350,000 more immigrants, all from Venezuela, who were allowed to remain in the U.S. under the Temporary Status Program. Immigrants in the CHMB program have been granted temporary 2-year stays after leaving their home countries because of conflicts there or unsafe living or working conditions. In a statement on the revocation of the CHMB program, DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin accused the Biden administration of having lied to America. Yet as DHS sent out notices to foreign nationals Thursday, Trump himself bemoaned the effect that his own administration's aggressive immigration enforcement actions were having on the farming, hotel, and leisure sectors, which sometimes employ undocumented workers. Our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good, long-term workers away from them, with those jobs being almost impossible to replace. Trump wrote in a Truth Social post Thursday morning, "In many cases, the criminals allowed into our country by the very stupid Biden open borders policy are applying for those jobs." Trump wrote, "This is no good. We must protect our farmers, but get the criminals out of the USA." He wrote, "Changes are coming." Speaking to reporters later, Trump reiterated his belief that farmers were being harmed by his administration's deportation regime. Farmers are being hurt badly. They have very good workers. They've worked for them for 20 years. They're not citizens, but they've turned out to be great. Trump said, "We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back," he said, an apparent reference to the deportation of undocumented agricultural workers that his administration has pursued. You go into a farm and you look in people. They've been there for 20, 25 years, and they work great, and the owner of the farm loves them and everything else," Trump continued. "And then you're supposed to throw them out. So we're have an order on that pretty soon, I think. We can't do that to our farmers and leisure to hotels," the president said. The White House did not immediately reply to a request for additional details about what such an order might look like. How LA raids ignited a new fight over immigration. Los Angeles is home to the country's largest population of undocumented immigrants. So when President Trump's immigration raids arrived, many expected trouble. It was a morning shift at Ambience Apparel, a clothing wholesaler on the edge of Los Angeles' fashion district, and along a crowded showroom of mannequins and women's skirts was a sprawling warehouse, where immigrant workers were bustling about. On any other day, the inventory would flow smoothly, from folded piles to cardboard boxes stacked on wooden pallets to be loaded onto trucks. But on June 6th, as U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents swarmed the premises, dozens of employees at the warehouse and at a second facility nearby fled their workstations, ducking between shelves and inside boxes. By the end of the day, about 40 people had been taken into custody, and hundreds of protesters were clashing with the police in downtown Los Angeles. It was the opening salvo in days of turmoil that have upended parts of the nation's second largest city and touched off protests across the country. The day after the raid, As scattered protests grew, President Trump ordered thousands of National Guard Marine Corps troops to Los Angeles in an extraordinary and to many excessive show of force. On June 6, as U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents swarmed Ambience Apparel, dozens of employees fled their workstations, ducking between shelves and inside boxes. No Kings was biggest protest in U.S. history, data analyst. The No Kings protest in every state may have been the biggest day of demonstrations in American history, a data analyst has suggested. Based on hundreds of crowdsourced records of No Kings Day event turnout and extrapolating for the cities where we don't have data yet, it looks like roughly 4-6 M people protested Trump across the U.S. yesterday. Independent data journalist G. Elliott posted to X Sunday. For reference, that'd mean Saturday's demonstrations featured 1% of the total population of 340 million taking to the streets in more than 2,000 cities to voice their opposition to the increasingly authoritarian, far-right policies the president has pursued since assuming office for the second time. The No Kings rallies follow after a spate of demonstrations against immigration raids carried out in Los Angeles and the surrounding area last week, to which Trump deployed 4,000 members of the National Guard and 700 Marines over the objection of California Governor Gavin Newsom. In a full report on the figures from Saturday's demonstrations, Morris added that mounting backlash against Trump's second term has also witnessed dramatically more protest activity than during his first stint in the White House. Since his inauguration in January, Trump's administration has witnessed more than 15,000 protests and rallies, representing a threefold increase in the number of public demonstrations that had taken place by this point in 2017. As the nationwide anti-government rallies unfolded, the president attended a Washington, D.C. parade to mark the 250th anniversary of the founding of the U.S. Army, which also happened to coincide with his 79th birthday. The White House downplayed the scale of turnout at the anti-Trump protests, while playing up the number of people who attended the military parade on Saturday. Trump's director of communications, Stephen Chung, claimed in a series of X posts that over 250,000 people attended the 250th anniversary event, whereas the No Kings protests have been a complete and utter failure with minuscule attendance. How will Trump's immigration crackdown in California impact the economy? President Donald Trump's administration is stepping up deportation efforts in California with immigration raids at restaurants, traffic stops, and routine legal check-ins. The immigration crackdown, while popular with voters and polls, has sparked protests in Los Angeles. Long-term, economists warn that fewer immigrants could take a hit to the economy, prompting labor shortages and slowing economic growth. Immigrants play a huge role in the California economy, said Giovanni Perry, an economics professor at the University of California, Davis. Without immigrants, there will be less economic growth, less opportunity, also for local companies and American workers. Why the U.S. is immigrant dependent? The country's economy has become very immigrant dependent, according to Christopher Thornburg, founding partner at Beacon Economics, a Los Angeles research and consulting firm. Need a break? Play the USA Today Daily Crossword Puzzle. About 479,000 U.S.-born workers were added to the labor force over the past 5 years, compared with 3.6 million foreign-born workers, according to an October report from the National Foundation for American Policy, a nonpartisan research organization. The report pointed to a spike in immigration and retirements, coupled with a slowdown in U.S.-born working-age population growth. In California, immigrants make up roughly 1/3 of workers and comprise an outsized share of the workforce in physically intensive sectors like construction and agriculture. Critics say these workers are lowering wages for U.S.-born citizens or taking away jobs. But Perry said that doesn't pan out in the data. Immigrants may reduce wages for native-born Americans with competing skills, according to Harvard economics professor George Borjas, but it slightly increases the income of native-born citizens overall. A separate 2024 working paper co-authored by Perry found immigrants had no significant effect on wages for those born in the United States who are college-educated, and a positive effect on wages for their American-born peers who are less educated. Instead, Perry said immigrants are filling the holes in industries struggling to hire. Immigrants account for 28% of care workers in long-term care settings, according to the nonprofit health policy organization KFF. In California, Immigrants make up 44% of manufacturing jobs and 40% of construction jobs, according to the Economic Policy Institute, a left-leaning think tank based in Washington, D.C. Some of those jobs are held by undocumented workers. About 1.8 million people, or 17% of immigrants in California, were undocumented as of 2022, according to Pew. The vast majority, 1.4 million, had no legal protections through programs like Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals or Active Asylum Claims. It would be lovely to deal with this with an expansion of the legal immigration system, Perry said. But lacking that, undocumented immigrants are doing a lot of these jobs. And losing some of them would make the situation worse. Pushing away immigrants, Perry argues, prevents companies from growing and creating more jobs that would benefit U.S.-born workers. One 2024 analysis from Jamshid Damoyai, executive director of the Center for Economics of Social Issues at California Lutheran University, found work from undocumented employees created an additional 1.25 million jobs in California. And because the vast majority of undocumented immigrants are not criminals, but people who have been part of their local communities for years, if not decades. In the majority of cases, the effects of just indiscriminately deporting these people is going to have very little benefit for the American people, Perry said. Revenue versus cost. It's true that immigrants add costs for the government. They benefit from public education, health services, and other state-specific policies. But research generally finds immigration tends to raise the federal government's revenue more than its costs, with immigrants adding an estimated $1.2 trillion in federal revenues between 2024 and 2034, according to Congressional Budget Office. State and local governments' costs tend to increase more than their revenues from a surge in immigration, but Perry said a rise in immigration is a net benefit overall. Even undocumented workers, Perry argued, boost the government's coffers because they pay a considerable amount of taxes. At the same time, they are ineligible for most federal benefits like Social Security and food stamps. Undocumented immigrants contributed $8.5 billion in state and local taxes in 2022, according to a 2024 study from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, a nonpartisan think tank. Trump and Newsom. Trump's battle with Newsom. California expands beyond immigration. What happens if the immigration crackdown continues? Thornburg doesn't expect Trump to deport every undocumented worker in the country and views the crackdown in California as more of a blown-up spectacle that may get tied up in the courts. Already, Trump has said he would back off certain deportation efforts to avoid labor shortages in areas like agriculture and hospitality. Our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good, long-time workers away from them, with those jobs being almost impossible to replace. Trump said in a June 12th post on Truth Social, changes are coming. While an immediate labor shortage is unlikely, Thornburg believes we're more likely to see people discouraged from coming to the United States in the years to come, resulting in a tighter labor market. That could mean higher wages for workers as companies step up recruitment efforts, but it would slow economic growth overall. Trump's efforts to constrain immigration during his first term played out in a similar fashion. By 2019, the unemployment rate had dropped to 3.5%, its lowest level since 1969, with earnings up 3.5% from 2018. Meanwhile, economic growth slowed to 2.3%, down from 2.9% the year prior, according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Perry said a tight labor market could have ripple effects across the economy, such as driving up the cost to produce certain items. Companies may be more inclined to import cheaper goods at a time when the Trump administration is pushing for more U.S. manufacturing through tariffs. This could have a cascade of effects, he said. There is no doubt at all that immigration and immigrants who do those simple, manual jobs are very important at making the economy go. As Trump doubles down on immigration, America faces a tough question. Can the economy afford to lose the very workers that keep it running? With backlash growing and industries warning of crisis, the immigration debate is far from over.
Trump administration tells 5 lakh immigrants to self-deport after revoking protection. Trump administration has initiated the deportation of nearly 5 lakh foreign nationals from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, ending the CHMB humanitarian parole program. This follows a Supreme Court ruling back in theaters' authority to revoke the Biden era protections, urging recipients to self-deport via a theater's app with incentives like a travel aid and a $1,000 bonus. Trump's crackdown on immigration, including recent raids in Los Angeles, has triggered mass protests nationwide, most notably in No Kings demonstration involving up to 6 million people. Trump simultaneously acknowledged that his aggressive depression policies are hurting key industries like farming and hospitality, where undocumented workers are vital. Economists warn the crackdown could slow economic growth, increase labor shortages, and raise production costs, especially in California, where immigrants form one-third of the workforce. Despite political support for strict immigration laws, research shows immigrants documented or not to boost economic output and government revenues. Trump cited 8 possible policy adjustments to protect industries reliant on immigrant labor.